This is an event that I wrote about and was worried about 20 years ago in a novel that I wrote under the name of Alexander Court, C-O-U-R-T, called Active Measures, and it started in Sweden and in Norway. This is unlike any other event we've ever seen. This is not just some right-wing screwballs. First of all, this man is exceedingly sane. Whatever else anybody's going to tell you, he is very sane. He's extremely calculated. He's very well read. This is not a crazy man who suddenly decided to do something. He made it very clear what his motives were, and the reason he made it very clear, this is the pristine case of terrorism that I've been waiting for and I've seen before, but this is not a false flag. This is not a stand down. This is not somewhere where suddenly any administration knew about an impending or wished for an impending right-wing movement. And I'll tell you why. Number one, his understanding of terror was absolutely perfect. He understood that terror is not the destruction of a building, it's not the destruction of any institution, but it is literally the creation of the emotion of terror, and he did it brilliantly. I don't think he did it alone. I think he had help, not at the particular scene, but he did have help from other countries, and I will talk about it. He blew up a building, which created enough terror because he did it at the right time when everybody was gone, and he did it under the building where the prime minister was, which means he was targeting the fact that they were extremely vulnerable, that the prime minister and the Labour Party is vulnerable. He could get them anytime he wanted. Then he took 1 hour to an hour and a half and went to an island and killed 80 white Aryan children who were the successor to political throne. Now, let me explain this. This sounds Machiavellian, what it is. In the words of terrorism, no one has pulled this type of exercise of distraction, distortion, and at the same time kill the very people you would not expect him to kill. Because if this were a plan or a false flag, unlike the other situations, he turned it around and did exactly what in terrorism one would do, which is to kill the very people he wanted to have associate with him.
Well, let me stop you, Doc, because let me stop you.
Alex, listen to me. The analog to this is not McVeigh. It is not Al-Qaeda. You have to go back to 1922 and 1923. He's literally following the steps of the very people he's accusing, and that is Hitler. Hitler in 1922-23, when he was arrested to make sure that he was not executed. He did not want to be executed.
The beer hall putsch.
Listen, and then what he did later on in the 1930s, he took all of the people around him who were Aryans and homosexuals and executed 300 of them in order to make a political deal. This man has studied terrorism, has understood the integration of the icons of terrorism, the icons of Christianity, some of which are wrong. He understood Marxism. He understood exactly what multiculturalism. He understood that France refused to have multiculturalism, and he used as a target audience the problem of multiculturalism, but he didn't go out and kill any Muslims or multicultural elements. He killed his own people to explain that he is able to take down any political system. Then he very calmly sat down, explained his motivations so there would be no confusion as to the fact that he was nuts. I wrote about this 20 years ago in a novel saying that the banality of evil, it's not anything that's egregious. It is the banality of evil, it is the ability to affect this type of terror so that you can terrorize a system or a country and eventually a world. Now, what makes him very lethal is that he will polarize and have around him all the white discontent men and women who are now looking to the right, in Europe in particular, and in Norway in particular. Now, what makes it very unusual is you have to understand what Norway is. Nobody's talked about Norway. I've worked in Norway. I know Norway. Norway is a country that had a history of collaborating with the Nazis, with Quisling. Remember the term Quisling, Alex?
Yes.
You have to explain to your audience. He was the prime minister and foreign minister of Norway during World War II and affiliated himself with the Nazis.
Der norwegische Ministerpräsident Vidkun Quisling traf zu mehrtägigem Besuch in der Reichshauptstadt ein, wo er vom Führer zu einer längeren Aussprache empfangen wurde. Links Reichskommissar Terboven, rechts Reichsminister Dr. Lammers. Vidkun Quisling überbrachte dem Führer als Geschenk ein silbernes Wikingerschiff.
So within Norway, you had a system where you had an understrain of the notion of being a monolithic Aryan people who affiliated with the Nazis. Now, in all due respect to the Norwegians, they also, in the fjords where I was, they fought the Nazis subsequently and held down 400,000 troops. So what I'm saying to you is this is not only an individual, this is a cultural confluence of Norwegian national character, where it's only 4.5 million, of the historical elements that they had in Norway, not in Christianity. Norway is not a great Christian country. It's a Lutheran country which is subjugated to the state. So his pronouncements of of Christianity is really the deification of Catholicism, which is in France. Totally different. His understanding of Christianity is mistaken, because the Knights of Templar did not come from any Aryan country. They came from the areas that I grew up in France, in the south of France, in Toulouse, and they were basically wayward individuals who had no work and were then empowered by the Pope to go forth into Jerusalem, and eventually became exceedingly corrupt. Now, having said that, my point is, this is a perfect execution of a terrorist act without destroying a building. I mean, he created the destruction of a building, but he created terror throughout the system in order to mobilize a political party. Now, can the CFR and other governments have the repression subsequent to that? Yeah, but do they intend to do that? No, and I'll tell you why. No system, including our own system, is that smart or that clever or capable. The stand down in the false flag that occurred in 9/11 was done in the Bush Jr. administration with neocons and ones who understood in a backward, almost a reverse way. They were so clear and so awkward in their stand and false flag that it was easy for me and others who knew the intelligence community to say this is false flag.
All right.
This is not a predictable element.
All right, we've got a break. We're going to come right back. I've got my points to make. And then your phone calls are coming up with Dr. Steve Pieczenik. I just see the pre-scripting.